In her first trip to Beijing since being re-elected, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is looking to promote free trade and economic growth. In the face of tariff threats from Donald Trump, both China and the EU are seeking effective ways to resist the unpredictable U.S. president and strengthen optimism for the global economy. She will also be discussing the Iran nuclear deal and a range of other concerns. But to start, the latest development shows that the DPRK leader Kim Jong-un has honored his commitment to destroying the nuclear testing site in the north of his country. This in the run-up to his upcoming summit with the U.S. President Donald Trump in Singapore. To discuss these issues and more, I'm happy to be joined in the Beijing studio by Jin Ling, Associate Research Fellow with the China Institute of International Studies, and Eric Mayer, Beijing Bureau Chief of Les Dernières Nouvelles d'Assac. We'll also speak via satellite to Dr. Margot Schüller, Senior Research Fellow at the GIGA Institute of Asian Studies in Hamburg. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Well, the latest development shows that this is a leader of credibility. Mr. Kim Jong-un of the DPRK has shown his political will in front of the world, summoning so many reporters from around the world to witness the destruction, or you may call it demolition, of the underground tunnel for nuclear testing. What do you think of the Chinese response?
I think Kim Jong-un has honored his commitment. That's a very specific step to hopefully the summit between the two sides will held as planned. From Chinese government, we sincerely welcome that's a one-to-one dialogue between the two leaders. That's very be important for the solution of the issue. And second, I think that Chinese strongly believe the two leaders have the, I like to say, political will and also the capability to successfully promote the solution for the denuclearization. Of course, we strongly stick to the denuclearization of the Korea Peninsula.
And what are your thoughts about the issue of denuclearization, starting with demolition of this nuclear testing site?
It's a very essential project for the next development of humanity, sort of. But I believe
to successfully promote the solution for the denuclearization. Of course, we strongly stick to the denuclearization of the Korea Peninsula.
And what are your thoughts about the issue of denuclearization, starting with demolition of this nuclear testing site?
It's a very essential project for the next development of humanity, sort of. But I believe that Kim Jong-un had to give a positive signal now. Even yesterday, you saw Donald Trump saying he was not so sure anymore that the meeting would happen at all. And there had been one or two negative signals by Kim Jong-un, by North Korea itself last week, saying that he would not accept or go by all conditions of America, and that he was giving sort of negative signals which maybe gave a little bit of, we would say, like clouds in the sky of denuclearization. And so now we are back on trail for the meeting to Singapore, I believe.
It seems the campaign success
to successfully promote the solution for the denuclearization. Of course, we strongly stick to the denuclearization of the Korea Peninsula.
And what are your thoughts about the issue of denuclearization, starting with demolition of this nuclear testing site?
It's a very essential project for the next development of humanity, sort of. But I believe that Kim Jong-un had to give a positive signal now. Even yesterday, you saw Donald Trump saying he was not so sure anymore that the meeting would happen at all. And there had been one or two negative signals by Kim Jong-un, by North Korea itself last week, saying that he would not accept or go by all conditions of America, and that he was giving sort of negative signals, which maybe gave a little bit of, we would say, like clouds in the sky of denuclearization. And so now we are back on trail for the meeting to Singapore, I believe.
It seems the campaign success 1 year ago of Donald Trump has surprised the whole world, because he rose on the platform of populism. And part of that is his pledge on the campaign trail to pull out of the 6+1 Iran nuclear deal. And that impact showcases the poor credibility of this American leader. Do you think the Europeans, along with the Chinese and the Russians, of course, are recovering from the aftershocks, the devastating earthquake geopolitically in the world? Do you think, Eric, we can trust President Trump?
It's very hard to say. For sure, Trump believes that with the might of the United States, he can force a new agreement. He also believes that this agreement is a bad one. Now we also have noticed in the meantime that this agreement, while being satisfying, is not enough or not complete. It looks like a first step. So we are not entirely against his idea of pursuing further the negotiation to consolidate that agreement. But the way he does it, to break down everything, is unbearable for the Europeans. They don't like that. And on that side, on that moment, Europe and China are together.
And I believe denuclearization in both Iran and the DPRK will be one of the major issues on the agenda of Chancellor Angela Merkel, who is visiting China the 11th time of its kind, the latest meeting with President Xi Jinping in Wuhan, just 1 month before the summit meeting in Qingdao for members of SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So what do you think of this kind of new diplomatic pattern between European Union, which is somehow represented by Angela Merkel, and the emerging power, China?
Yeah, traditionally, when a Western leader comes to China, the success of the meeting is gauged or is measured on the number, the figures of contracts that are concluded in the end. A lot of people more recently believe that this is not the best way to estimate the results. You also have to improve and deepen the relationship and ask about strong, deep, serious matters which engage our future. For instance, what happens about the European-Chinese relationship once a new relationship, which will be deeper and stronger, will happen with the USA? You have a sort of possibility of super alliance between these two superpowers, and what happens with the traditional allies of China, like Europe, France, Germany, or even Russia?
This process of globalization, Jinling, I wonder if you agree with me, is characterized with at least one prominent feature: the multi-center world, multi-power center world. It's not just the United States, the sole superpower with the disintegration of the Soviet Union back in 1991, at the end of the Cold War. It's also triangle relationship between the European Union, the United States, and China. This time around, the major issue, I'm afraid, is how to improve mutual trust between Europeans and China, despite the issue of human rights. What do you think of the possibility of enhancing mutual trust?
I think it's very important today for China and Europe, especially China and Germany, to enhance the mutual trust under the background of the rising protectionism, unilateralism from the US side. as we talked before, the exit from the nuclear deal, exit from climate change deal, and also to use the tariff as the stick to force others to accept the terms unilaterally put forward from U.S. sides. So in order to fight against these deglobalizations policies, I think EU and China, as very influential international actors, both advocate the multilateralism in the world. Under current context, that importance has become more and more visible.
First and foremost, we need to take a second look at the concept of deglobalization. In fact, some Chinese observers point out it's an issue of reglobalization against the background of geopolitical reconfiguration. Now, let me go to Margaret, a German guest speaker who's standing by in Germany. Hello, Margaret. Nice to see you again on satellite. What do you think of the issues on the agenda?
Hello, Rai. How are you?
Hi, Margaret. What do you think of the background against which Angela Merkel undertook this journey?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the visit comes at a very important point because we have to face a lot of challenges, both China and Germany. And three of the challenges are very often discussed already. It's first of all the U.S. retreat from the Paris agreement, so environmental issues are at stake, so we have to define a new international environmental policy. And then of course the exit from the Iran deal means that in the international sphere you have again more conflicts to come. And last but not least, the trading system. So multilateral trading system has helped both Germany and China a lot, and we would like to stay with that.
What do you think of the choice of Shenzhen as yet another major stopover for her visit to China? Margaret?
I think it's a perfect choice because Shenzhen is a very important location for innovation. You have a lot of IT companies, leading companies like, for example, Huawei, and to see how China has advanced in this field is very important for the Chinese, for the German side, and especially to the delegation of German business leaders coming with Chancellor Merkel.
It's not only a major issue between China and the United States, Margaret, about IPR protection. It's also a major concern of Germans, who not only is known for being a major manufacturing center in continental Europe, but it seems China often comes under severe scrutiny that we may have violated some of the IP commitments, namely protection of your copyrights. So what do you think of the German concerns?
I think that China has made a lot of progress already, but in some fields like copycats violating IPRs, especially in the key industries of Germany like machinery industries. There has been just published a report about the German machinery industry losses due to the violation of IPR rights. So although there has been progress, there's still this question that has to be solved. Also in favor of the Chinese companies, because they are suffering as well.
Jinling, obviously protection of intellectual property rights comes across as a major part of the contents between the two sides. Shenzhen is known for being the incubation of innovative and startup companies, technology companies in particular, and this visit takes place against the backdrop of, for example, the threat of Donald Trump to terminate all the sales of key technologies as well as spare parts for telecommunication. ZTE is singled out for the bashing. Now, do you think in this particular area Germans and China share much the same concerns, since Germany found out almost overnight that the sustainability of their high-tech development is totally at the mercy of the whims of the United States, which could easily destroy its own credibility and tear apart the agreement.
Yeah, as we talked before, the Trump's policy really damages its own credibility, especially its market credibility. So from this point of view, Germany and China should have more common sense in this aspect. And I'd like to point out this time visit to Shenzhen, I think, is a kind of a sign from German side to show the innovation partnership between China and Germany. But here, frankly speaking, I like to point out that from German side, they should be more confident in the high-tech products areas, that the mutual cooperation for further innovation will have a win-win effect for China and Germany, not a kind of zero-sum game. That is why recently Chinese ambassador in Germany put forward that when Chinese further open up our door, the door have opened by European sides shouldn't be closed. So from this point of view, we see the potential there for cooperation, but we should also watch out the also rising protectionism today from German side.
The issue of great urgency under our discussion at this moment is credibility. It concerns, of course, the reputation of China to protect intellectual property rights. What do you think of the French media and their response?
We are European based. We react as Europeans. The interests and the needs of Germany are the interests and the needs of France as well. Last year, the President of the European Chamber of Commerce, Jörg Wuttke, said that European investments in China were only 3% of European investments in the world. And he said that is a price to pay for the lack of market access on a regular basis, on an equal basis for Europeans in China, and also the lack of protection for the high-tech products like semiconductors. So China is losing out a lot. Normally, a country like China should receive 20 to 30% of European investment, meaning 10 times more. And this is lost so far. I believe that Madame Merkel is going to deal with that, because credibility, confidence, once this is there, our investment can come much more. And this is not yet the case now, so we have to talk on that.
Margaret, part of the current trade war, which has been put on hold, fortunately, between the two biggest economies, the United States and China, is the issue of how to open up China's capital market and the financial industry. Now, do you think Europeans would jump on the wagon, seize the opportunity, and take advantage of China's opening up when we commemorate the 40th anniversary of China's opening up in the year 2018? What are the chances for Europeans to have a line share in our financial market?
I think some of the companies in this field are quite competitive, and maybe there's also for the Chinese side a lot of to learn about international dealings in the banking and insurance sector. So I think there could be a win-win cooperation between banks and insurance companies from both sides. It has already started, but barriers so far are quite high, and once they are lowered, there's more opportunity for both sides.
Another issue that may help cement the solidarity between the European Union and China, Margaret, is the issue of US dollars. Now, the Americans have been using the financial institutions that they dominate since the end of the Second World War, if you look at the Bretton Woods, to impose sanctions on Russia, Iran, the DPRK, and increasingly, President Trump would also impose sanctions on China, where some of the Chinese companies are set to continue with the deals with the North Korean business community. So do you think with the establishment of RMB clearing centers in Germany, the UK, France, and many other parts of the world, we would consider proactively how to phase out our excessive reliance on the US dollars? Instead, we'll turn to the euro to diversify our forex reserves and to diversify the means of global payment. Margaret?
Yeah, yes, Ray, I would completely agree. This would be a powerful tool, and we should discuss this issue in more detail. So I'm completely with you.
Jinling, obviously Margaret has been pretty cautious on the future of the euro and the strength of the US dollar, which has been employed and abused to a large degree by this American administration in imposing sanctions. So what do you think of the case of Iran?
Yes, today the Iranian issues, the crises have actually caused the deepest crisis between the EU and the USA. Now EU is under pressure to find the ways out. One of the solutions is to use the euro financial credit to support the business operations in Iran in order to avoid the dollar transactions. And also they would like to relaunch the so-called blocking regulations. But I like to say it's very hard for the EU to resist the pressure from US side. You could see the harder choices maybe in the future facing the EU enterprises. That is to choose between the Iranian markets and the US markets. When look at the market share for the EU's business, the answer is quite visible. That's why today I think EU is trying to ally the common endeavor from the Russia, China, and also today we witness EU try to cooperate with the Arabic countries in order to jointly fighting against the unilateralism from the US side.
It's not just the pullout of Americans from the nuclear deal with Iran. It's also that European companies are likely to be punished if they dismiss the American threats and continue their business cooperation with the Persian state. So to what degree do you think European leaders will join hands with China in protecting our corporate stakes?
Well, to start with, you have quite big interest of Europe in Iran, more than American interest. Airbus was going to sell 100 planes to Iran, and the French oil group Total had a €1 billion deal signed with Iran. And Total already said that they are going to pull out unless some political solution is found. Obviously, Europe, Germany, France have a ticket to play with China on that one. But honestly, in practical terms, I don't see how both groups now could put pressure on the USA. They can stand firm on a position, but if, like as you said rightly yourself 5 minutes ago, basically all business on earth is nominated in dollars, is written in dollars. So America has a very easy way to punish anyone it wants. And on that one, there is not much we can change for the moment. But for sure, Germany, France, and China, they want to step out of that dependency.
Margaret, I'd like to have your assessment about the German stakes in Iran. How do you assess the prospects of German companies continuing to do business with Iran despite the economic sanctions that Secretary of State Pompeo says will be more severe?
I think it will be very hard for German companies to stay in Iran and continue trading with Iran due to this change in the political environment, especially with the threat of sanctions for non-US companies trading with Iran. So I think that we don't have a big choice. And there is a discussion in Germany whether China, for example, could increase some of its trading, for example, of oil, to compensate for the losses of other countries reducing their imports.
The issue is China comes under increasing pressure from the United States to import more of its own agricultural produce, Boeing planes, as well as, of course, energy. So in that case, your assumption that China will import more of the Iranian oil to compensate for the losses would come to no avail. What do you think of this? What do you think of this negative trade-off, Margaret?
Yeah. I think we might further discuss this. At the moment, I can't see a solution, really. Maybe I'm too pessimistic.
Margaret remains tight-lipped about what Germany could do at this moment. Jilin, what do you think of, the liberal multilateral global trade regime, which is being undermined by the unpredictability and poor credibility of this American administration? The issue of energy is one. Other issues concerning the credibility of the Bretton Woods and the dominance of US dollars. So to what degree do you think European politicians in China would join hand?
Today it's quite urgent for these two sides to stay together. I think that is why the German side, the Chancellor Merkel, this time stressed the importance of a multilateral trade system. We all know Germany is one of the biggest exporters in the world. The multilateral trade system is fundamental to Germany's interests and to some extent to Europeans' interests. Of course, China is one of the beneficiaries of the multilateral trade system. So from this point of view, there is strong internal driving force from both sides to join hands, fight against unilateralism from US side. But the EU and China here, we're back to the issue of mutual trust. I still remember when the tariff imposed by US on EU's steel and aluminum, then the EU asked the US for exemption and jointly to deal with the so-called overcapacity from Chinese side. So from this point of view, I think EU should have a better understanding of today's most serious challenges, that is to fight against unilateralism instead of focusing on the so-called ideological differences between the two sides.
Right.
And if I may say one thing on that, mutual trust also means that we have to take some hurdles away, like, for example, Germany and France don't like too much to see China have a little bit of much influence on Eastern Europe, like on the summit on Budapest, where with 16 countries which are European, 11 of them are members of the European Union, and there is a part of Chinese influence on these countries which contradicts or almost contradicts the view of Brussels.
In what way contradict? Sorry to interrupt. In what way contradict to the EU interests?
It's like if, for example, Europe would have a summit with the SCO countries of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and without China.
Excuse me, perhaps this big issue will be discussed next time about further cooperation between the European Union and China with precondition of diminishing the ideological hurdles. And also, European Union's future is based on consensus. The 16 members of Europe will, of course, be in a major part. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.